Okay, year 13, and today we're going to look at talking about art critique in a piece of artwork. Okay, so we're looking at in year 13 we're looking at Francis Bacon at the moment, and we're going to be moving on to Egon Schiele and then Jenny Savile. We'll use Francis Bacon as the example today by looking at one of his pieces of work, but I've given you two handouts. One is a PDF, I believe, based on just a different structure you can use to talk about his work, and then I've given you a PowerPoint which will help you sort of talk more in correct art terms. So let's look at what we're doing here. So let's see if I can pull up now. If we move with this screen here, I should be able to now give a more general view. Okay, so I'll minimize that, and let's pull up artwork here. Okay, so let's talk about this work here now. All right, let's move up to the top. So when we're talking about an artist's work, we can find it quite difficult to find the right words or what information is relevant and what we need to look at. So the first thing is, read up about the artist, find out a little bit about his history or her history, look on the internet, magazine articles, newspapers or books. Okay, they're all helpful in finding out the answers to these questions. So who is the artist, first of all? Now, if you're doing Cubism, you might be looking at Picasso. In year 13 at the moment, we're looking at Francis Bacon. So we'll use him as the example. Research where he's from. He's from Ireland. When was he making his works? Find out, when he was born, when he died, but also when his big era for making the work was. These are important. Are they a contemporary artist? Well, Francis Bacon's passed away now. I'd say he was a modern artist, but wouldn't be describing him as a grand old master like Rembrandt or these people. This is a more of a relevant modern artist. Are they associated with a particular movement? If you're talking about Picasso, yes. He had lots of different movements, and what we studied before was Cubism. But with Francis Bacon, I need you to research what movement you think he's attached to, if any. Why are we looking at his work? Now, it's not as simple as Mr. Saunders has told us to. This is going to be about what's the theme. Our theme here is people and emotion. And we're looking at this artist because he's an interesting artist in terms of his actual life, how it impacts upon his artwork. And does it impact? Is there a connection or is there not a connection? So, we're looking at things like with Francis Bacon, he was asthmatic, he was an alcoholic, he was homosexual at a time where it was illegal to be homosexual. Do these things have a factor in the way he produced his artwork, what the artwork looked like? Okay. How do you relate to the theme of his work? The materials he's using, the process he's using, how do you feel about them? So this is a bit further on. So when we've written a bit of information about the artist and we're looking at it, how do you feel about this work? And when you're starting to copy his work and then produce work based on his work, your own images, but based upon his style or his way of working, how is it affecting the way you're producing the image? Does it interest you? Why does it interest you? When you're kind of setting up this and you're talking about the artist's work, try and include a picture of the piece of work you're looking at next to the text. It's easy for the reader to sort of cross-reference and go, oh, you were talking about Francis Bacon's picture of the Pope. That's why, oh, that's the image you're talking about at the time. It's right next to it. So it's easy for the reader to understand what you're talking about and why. Okay, the other thing is, try and include the name of the art piece and the year it was created. The year it was created is really relevant because a piece of artwork created in 1942, well, world events were quite big then. Have they impacted on this piece of work or not? Okay, these things can be relevant to the actual text you're putting next to them and the context of the paintings. Here's some nice ways to start off or think about what you're writing about. I'm interested in the artist because, okay, it's a simple one. The artist relates to my theme because it explores, well, we're looking at people and emotions. We're looking at different ways of describing moving paint around. So, what is it that we are studying this for? When I look at their work, does it make me feel happy, energetic, somber, melancholy? What emotions do I feel when I look at this piece of work? Or what do I think the artist wants me to feel? Now we're directly linking the work. We're producing a piece of work based on this artist's style or feel or ideas. So, you can talk about that. You can talk about it. And as you produce more work, it becomes more relevant. You'll have more to say about these factors. What's the style of the artist? Okay, what's the scale that he works in? These all become relevant. So find these bits of information out. You may find other artists who work in a similar style. It'd be great to cross-reference those and bring those in. It's showing that you are exploring this artist more than just the teachers told you to look at this one artist. You could go off and find other artists you think paint in a similar style or in a contrasting style. Maybe he had a rival at the time. Okay, and they were both successful at the same time, but had slightly different styles. Contrast them, might be interesting to compare them. What do you think this artist is trying to say? Is he giving a voice to his pieces of work? Or does he want the work to talk for itself? Now, it's good to quote this artist. He's an interesting artist because I think he sometimes just makes things up just to be mischievous. But you could challenge what he says about his own work. That might be an interesting way to talk about his work. You might be saying that, I want to paint the mouth really beautiful like Monet. But you're saying, but I can't see any of the bright colours of Monet in the mouth that this artist is drawing. It looks dark. So telling you one thing, but actually when you look at his work, it's not quite true what he's saying. Or maybe his intention was there, but why didn't he make that? Why didn't he quite produce beautiful colours in the mouth like a Monet painting? What do you like about this work? Or what do you dislike about it? You can't just say, I don't like this work because the colours are horrible. Because what might be horrible to you might be beautiful to me. I like green. You might not like green at all. So if you don't like the green in his work, maybe you have to say why. Does it remind you of mildew or mold or slime? Whereas to me, it might remind me of freshly cut grass. So you have to talk about why you dislike things. You can't just be on personal taste. Now, personal taste is great, but you have to analyze and realize why you don't like it. Below here, we have an example that somebody has used to annotate the work of an artist called Patrick Caulfield. It might be interesting for you to read through to see how they structured it together using some of those cues that you've read beforehand. Get on to this now. There's a sheet to help you analyze the work and criticize it. When you critique a piece of work, it's like a filmmaker, film critic. When they critique a film, they're not just saying I hate it, or criticizing it. They could be saying it's a masterpiece. Critiquing is not just to be negative, it's the positives as well. So, let's look at it. What's the context of visual description? Describe the actual piece of work. What do you see in front of you? I'm seeing a portrait here of Francis Bacon. It's slightly distorted. The nose looks broken. The lips are pushed together on one side with a brush mark, and I can see the brush mark sliding in and deforming the face. You can describe it as a black background, a dark background. I can see the white collar sticking up through. Describe it. Just tell me what you see. What is the subject of the theme? Has he got a theme running through it? Now it's a portrait. It's a portrait of a man. Who's the man? What's the relationship to Francis Bacon? What do you think he's trying to convey? Is it 2D or 3D? Basic question. When you're describing a piece of work, you can use formal words and formal elements to talk about it. These are, artistic terms. I'll come to that a bit when we come to meaning, mood, and messages. What do you think the work is about? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel calm, sad, happy, confused, angry? Talk about that. What does it remind you of? When I'm looking at Francis Bacon's work, there are some of this image here that we can see. That's based on a famous painting by an artist, an old master artist, which was a very technical piece of work. But Francis Bacon became obsessed about it, and he kept drawing it, and kept painting it. So he has many, many images of this one piece of image of the Pope in his chair. If you look carefully at that, you can almost see these broken glasses on this. Now, that's a reference to a film called Battleship Britannica, where there's a woman screaming as a child is falling away from her, and her glasses get broken as she falls. Now, he's referencing things. Sometimes you won't spot them, but other times you might. And if you do, it's good to talk about them. And as you're working through this, now in year 13 you've been producing works on Photoshop to do with Francis Bacon, your own faces distorted in the style of Francis Bacon, then copies of them painted. Now you've been working on a canvas with acrylic paint now. So how has his work helped you develop your style? What have you learned from it? Top tip is buy yourself a dictionary or a thesaurus. Thesaurus is a great finding that word doesn't quite fit in. So when you're looking for a word to suit an atmosphere or a type of line, look it up in the thesaurus and it might give you a clue to a better word to describe it. I'm quickly going to move on. Hopefully this will work now. We're going to move on to a PowerPoint, which I've got here. Okay, so we'll go from the beginning here. And these are art terms that are great for describing things like we've said. So Francis Bacon, his work doesn't have a particular line to it, but Egon Schiele certainly does. And how would you describe the line in the painting or the movement of the brush or the pencil? Is it a flowing line? Is it delicate, simple, bold, thick? These are great terms for describing how the paint's been applied, maybe, or the line has been drawn. The tone of the work is a great one for Francis Bacon. Is it subtle? Is it contrasting? Is it muted? Are they flat, dark, dynamic, dramatic? Is there depth to it? Is it shadowy? Look at these terms. They're great for describing the artist's work. Now, texture is more common for describing clothing, furniture, or hair, etc. But it also could be, in there, when I was looking at the hair of the picture of Francis Bacon, fine detail, smooth, or is it coarse, like the paint dragged across the surface of the canvas, showing the canvas just coming through? Describing the shape work might be more important for sculptures, but there are some things like elongated. We might think about the face as irregular. So there are some terms in there that might be helpful when describing his work. Movement. Although a lot of his pictures are just straight on portraits, there's still a lot of movement in the way the paint is applied and the brush marks. So please take that into consideration when describing the work. Is there any sudden movements of the brush? Is there any rhythm to it? Okay, think about these things. Colour's very big with Francis Bacon, of course. We could look at it, is there bold colours there? Are any of them vibrant? Are they dramatic? Warm, pale? Think about words that could describe the colour in his work. Scale of the artwork. Quite importantly, look up how big the work is. It might be a tiny piece you're looking at, and on the computer screen, all the works look the same size. But it is going to affect the way you see a piece of work, whether it is small or whether it fills a whole wall. It's going to give you a different impression, and it's going to give you a different feeling. So take that into consideration, please, when looking at your work, and do that with a bit of research on it. There's a broad term of other words like saturate, which is the brightness of the colours, geometric, the sort of how the shapes work. These will give you a good idea of other things you can write about when describing an artist's work. And again, some good words here to explain Francis Bacon. Dramatic, strong. Is he subtle? I don't think so, but you may. So anyway, good luck when looking at Francis Bacon's work, and I hope that you kind of feel a little bit more settled with trying to describe how to paint his work, how to write about his work, and how to develop your own work from it. Remember, this is a constant evaluation. You might have written the work about his past and his history, but then talk about how it's affecting your work and how your work is linked to his work. So when you've finished a piece, you can talk underneath and evaluate it by linking it to things about the movement of how he moves the brush, how he blends colors, how he distorts the face. Anyway, good luck on doing this, and I hope you're successful in writing about Francis Bacon.